welcome back to Tahar Talks. Today we have with us someone very special. We have with us Mr. Sangeeth Varghese, who is not only the president of IFSPD Europe, but is also a Harvard and an LSE graduate. At the very same time, he was also elected to be the Youth Global Leader for the World Economic Forum. So, sir, we would love to hear from you. What is the kind of work that you do?
What is the kind of work which I do? I primarily do three different types of work. The first one, as the president of IFSPD Europe. It's an international institution which is a strategic partner for the United Nations. And we have got almost about 60 member nations. It was formed as an initiative of the political leaders, the diplomats, the ambassadors, the intellectuals from across the European nations. And the idea was about establishing a world which is sustainable, which is peaceful, and which is development-oriented. Though it started out as a European-centric, a Black Sea, Caspian Sea-centric, which means that it is mostly on the Eastern European part of it. Right now, our representative nations are from across the nations. We also have a youth initiative, which is called the IFSPD Europe Academy, which incidentally selects 10 best schools from every region. And a GSIS happens to be one of the schools which had been selected this year. And not only selected this year, but as a champion school from the entire region, we just select one school as a champion school. And the school happens to be the champion school. So that's one part of the work which I do. Second part of the work which I do, I also run a strategic consulting firm. So we consult for the likes of the World Economic Forum, the World Bank. We consult for nations of the world. We consult primarily for nations which are in crises. So we consult for the government of Libya, government of Iraq, government of Iran, government of Afghanistan. So we consult for nations in crises on their rebuilding efforts.
So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So now I'm familiar with I've read about the IFSPD and I've read about the kind of work it does. But I would like to ask you, why do you at a personal level believe that work like this and what, the fields that you are working in is important right now?
I would also like to add on, what motivated you to choose the work you're doing right now? And let me answer the second part of it first. What motivated to take up the work which I'm doing right now? There is this beautiful Jewish saying, whenever the student is ready, the teacher appears. So I would tend to believe that rather than me choosing the work which I'm doing at this point of time, the work has chosen me. A lot of things which I have done in my life for the last 20 or 25 years or so, serendipitously, it kind of added on, it kind of compounded. And at this juncture, not because I wanted to be at this juncture, not because I thought I would be at this juncture at any point of time when I was your age. I grew up in a small town. I went to a small school. I didn't have any big dreams when I was growing up. I never thought that I would relocate myself into a bigger city. I never thought that I would do the work which I'm doing right now. I think serendipitously it adds on, serendipitously it compounds. Whatever you're doing right now, you might not see a purpose in whatever you're doing right now. You might not know why you're doing something which is right now. But it compounds. Initially, the law of compounding works very, very magically. It initially it is very slow. You really cannot see the change, but then it just happens. So I did not choose the work which I'm doing. I would not even say that the work chose me. It just happened.
Naturally, yeah. And I believe that makes a lot of sense to me, because if you are just truly doing what you're meant to do and what you want to do, you're doing that based on, your own attributes and what you are good at. Meaning that if it were to compound into something bigger, it will be something that you are naturally more inclined towards. And that always makes a lot of sense to me.
Basically, trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process. So, because you were talking about obviously the process and what went, the full journey into, who you are right now, I would just focus on one part of it, and that is education. So when I'm talking about education, I mean like your university, your grad school, or your undergrad school. How do you believe that decisions like those or choices on where you went to your undergrad impacted who you are right now?
And that again was serendipitous. It was, I didn't choose the work or I didn't choose the education which I wanted to do at all. Like I mentioned, I grew up in a small town.
Did you want to do something else before you went in, like before this work chose you?
Yeah, so like I said, I studied in a smaller school. I went to a smaller college. At that point of time, India has got this strange fixation with the STEM subjects. India is very fixated with mathematics, engineering, medical, right? We are fixated with those subjects. Probably it's because of the history that we come up with. Probably because our initial governments invested in the STEM subject. I'm not saying that that's bad at all, but it's a great thing. But unfortunately, in a lot of students like me, I just at least when in the time when I was growing up, it kind of drove me to a place which I was not enjoying at all. I was not a great STEM student. I was okay. I was never interested in STEM as such. And a lot of my brilliant classmates were taking up wanting to go to IIT. They wanted to sit down and prepare for uh, for their IIT exam by taking a gap year. And what do they do with the gap year? They just go ahead and take um, a social science subject, a humanities subject, so that they have time to prepare. So there were these friends of mine who were taking economics, and I just went ahead and took economics because they were taking economics. I didn't have a plan with economics. I didn't have a plan with anything. I just took economics because they were taking economics. But then I fell in love with the subject. I absolutely loved what I was learning out there. And I had economics, I had history, I had political science, and I loved all these subjects. And by the time I was completing the graduation, I was a gold medalist. I was a fairly large university, so I think it was an okay deal to be a gold medalist. And then I went on to do my management program, which again I was a gold medalist over there. And then I was chosen as for a program which is called this is about 20-25 years back. I was chosen for a program when the Reliance Group was getting reoriented under Mukesh Ambani. So I was selected for a program which is called the Young Leaders Program, wherein so the young leaders would end up being put in the fast track program, right? So you are fast tracked to take on responsibilities, and I ended up becoming the chief of staff for Mukesh Ambani. I worked over there for 3-4 years, and I wanted to do something more. I wanted to change my game. I applied for the London School of Economics. I got through with a full scholarship. Uh, I studied at the LSE. I completed my development economics. Uh, when my classmates were staying back in London for investment banking jobs. Now, yes, I took up a job at the United Nations for about a year or so. I consciously wanted to come back to India. I wanted, so this was again 25 years, probably 20 years back. So I wanted to come back to India. I wanted to contribute to the India development or grow alongside India. That's the way I would put it. I wanted to grow alongside India. So I came back to India. I started up my consulting firm. Um, I got selected as the young global leader of the World Economic Forum. So World Economic Forum selects mm, just about a few handful of individuals every year as the young global leader. So I was one of them, and I was again. I love studying. I love reading. I love studying. So I again got a full scholarship for Harvard. So I went and did my leadership in public policy. Um, and with that knowledge, I again came back to India because this is where I wanted to be. I wrote a few books. I continued my consulting practice. And about a few years back, IFSPD selected me to be their president. And here
So that was a journey. Like I was so engrossed into the journey because I could like see the actual progression going from a small town to being the president of ISPD Europe right now. So, I would just, in all of this journey, do you feel that there are certain choices or certain decisions which you had to very consciously make that you believe completely change your entire game around?
yes. So when I was selected to the Young Leaders Program at Reliance, it's a very comfortable job. It's a very prestigious job because you are the chief of staff of Mukesh Ambani, and he's a man who's changing the world. At that point of time, he was he was launching the telecommunication. Until then, Reliance was about petroleum and petrochemicals and all those things, and that was a time when he was launching telecommunications. So until that point of time, India had a telecommunication penetration of 1%. So if you've had about 100 crore people at that point of time, right now we have got about 1.4 billion. But at that point of time, if you assume that we had about 100 crore people, just about a crore of people had telephones.
Taboos, yes.
And Mukesh Ambani came back and announced that we would, in 1 year, whatever India has achieved in 50 years is 1%. And he said in the year 2000, this was in the year 2000, 2002, he said that I want to double the penetration. I want to make it 2%. I want to put another crore of people's hands. And by the time I quit Reliance in the year 2004, from 1%, it was not 2% as he had envisioned, but it was 60%. In about 3 to 3.5 years, from 1%, we jumped to 60%. I was there at the game. I was there at the game when India's telecommunication penetration went from 1% to 60%. I could have had a fun life over there, but I realized that I had to change the game because it's a large organization and you can have only so much fun at somebody else's expense. So that's when I decided to quit, and that time I had a good job, good salary, good place, good respect, but I decided to give it all up and go and become a student like you all. So I was back at the London School of Economics with my backpack and walking couple of kilometers. My hall of residence used to be a couple of kilometers away from my university. So I would just walk it up a couple of kilometers and then walk it down to the university. Very different from the life which I was leading earlier, where I was getting picked up by a car and dropping back. So I'm back as a student, carrying a backpack, walking up, walking down, and having meals at the hall. Well, that changed my life.
Why this particular university?
Why this particular university? A couple of reasons. I had applied to Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, and LSE. I got through all of them. Harvard gave me only a part scholarship at that point of time. Cambridge gave me only a part scholarship at that point of time. Oxford did not give me a scholarship. So that was one of the reasons I wanted a scholarship. It's not that I needed a scholarship, but I wanted a scholarship. Scholarship would help me to do what I want to do rather than taking a student loan. So that's one of the reasons. Second reason is that the kind of economic thinking in London School of Economics, it captivated me. So they have a philosophy which is called the Fabian socialism. So I fell in love with Fabian socialism, and I wanted to pursue that part. That's the reason. Sorry.
Could you in brief tell us what it's all about, the Fabian socialism?
So Fabian socialism is about building a welfare state, right? So it's about a benevolent state, right? So there are two ways in which we can look at economics. The one is a purely capitalistic society, right? So a purely capitalistic society, we're tending towards what is called a laissez-faire, where everybody is free to do whatever they want to do, and the market forces would control you. The market forces of demand and supply, and they would end up controlling whatever you're doing, right? So that's what a purely capitalistic play, which is the kind of philosophy which partly the kind of philosophy which America follows, a purely capitalistic society. And some of the other nations, like typically Scandinavian countries, so your Sweden, Norway, Denmark, all those Scandinavian countries, Great Britain to a certain extent, some of the Western European nations, they follow us. They have capitalism, but it's a more state supported capitalism. So they have a lot of welfare programs which are going on. The state is a welfare state. The state is thinking for the people. People are not left on their own. The state has got beautiful programs which are running on education, which are running on healthcare, which are running on your social security. So state is like a benevolent parent who takes care of it. I love the philosophy, and I thought that's very important rather than a very ruthless capitalistic state which tramples down upon the poor, and but it sits there and says that things will fall into place at some point of time, because when we are making money, it kind of trickles down and reaches the masses, and the masses have got a chance to uplift themselves.
Yeah. What I found to be so interesting through everything you spoke about right now is that you went back to education pretty often. You went back to LSE and then you went to Harvard. So do you think that, especially going back after, achieving so much in life at different various points, going back to education, going back to being a student, changed your perspective on what, the kind of work you were doing?
Oh, definitely, yes. Absolutely, absolutely. Going back to be a student teaches you a lot of things. Going back to be a student teaches you the value of humility.
Mm.
It makes you humble again. One day you are sitting in a cabin and asking people to do work for you, and the next day you are walking on the streets and the people are asking you to do their work. So it teaches you humility. Second, it allows you to recheck your first principles, your hypothesis which you have had in your life, whether they are right, wrong. It helps you to go back to your roots, examine the roots. It helps you to examine your belief systems.
Hmm.
Not all of your belief systems are right. Just because you believe in something, the world is right now about blind beliefs. People blindly believing in religions, people blindly believing in political philosophies. And because you are believing in a political philosophy, because you're believing in a religion, you think that is the ultimate truth.
Yeah.
And probably there is no ultimate truth. Probably it is just the truth which you are holding. Probably there is no ultimate truth in this world at all.
Yeah.
So it helps you examine the truths which you have and to realize that some of the truths which you thought are absolute truths are not truths at all. It is just your bias. It is just your mind manipulating you. And especially with the social media right now, it depends upon which side of the social media you are in. If you believe in something, social media is so effective to give you exactly the news which you want to see. It doesn't give you any other news. It will give you again and again and again the news which you want to see. And it's like a social media is a new religion.
And does it
Social
talk
media.
about the other side?
No, social media is a new religion. Social media is the new indoctrination as far as the masses are concerned. Social media is the new opium of the masses.
No, because we are completely a generation that's grown up with social media. I've had my Instagram account for such a long time now, and I agree with what you're saying so much, especially when we look at global politics or we look at any ongoing issues in the world right now. I believe that, this generation, especially, a lot of our opinions are completely formed based on what we see on, our Instagram feeds. Except that we know how the algorithm works and we know how dangerous this actually could end up being for a lot of us. So, to take out a moment to go back to being a student, to actually reflecting on what you're learning in real life does make all the difference.
Yes.
So, I just have like now, I know all of this led to the IFSPD. So, I just wanted if you could tell us what the IFSPD is and what its goal stands for.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, IFSPD Europe, initially it was a small gathering of the heads of states of European states, primarily from the Black Sea, Caspian Sea region, where they came up together. The diplomats, the heads of the states, the intellectuals came together to establish more of a peaceful uh, coexistence as far as that part of the world is concerned. It eventually developed into right now it is more than 60 nations at this point of time. Uh, Initially, it was a forum for diplomats, the heads of the states, the intellectuals to meet up and discuss and find a neutral platform where they could come in. So if Armenia and Azerbaijan has got a problem, you do not have to go into an Armenia or an Azerbaijan to discuss about the border problems. If a Turkey or Armenia has got a problem, you don't have to go into one of the states. Here is a neutral platform wherein you can come and discuss. Very similar to the United Nations. And by the way, we are also a strategic partner for the United Nations. We are a part of that body. But after I came in, mm, I have a lot of interest in the youth and the development of the youth. Uh, so the academy wing of the IFSPD, we run several programs. One of the most important program is IFSPD Fellowship, where we help youngsters who are already in schools, primarily school students, to understand the complexities of the world, to understand the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world
Mm.
through something we called as the multi-stakeholder dialogues. World problems do not get settled by debating. That's not the way the world problems get settled. It's not that somebody goes up there in the podium and starts debating very, very actively about that. Right? That's not the way problems get sorted.
Yeah.
It's not the podium which sorts out the problems. It's the round table which sorts out the problems where the stakeholders come and sit down and realize that if I need to win, I need to ensure that you also win at some point of time. If I come to the table and sit down and say that only I can win and the life is a zero-sum game, you are almost always trying to thwart my plans, or you are almost always trying to put a spanner in my works. And then we are just debating. That's all what we are doing.
Yeah.
So IFSPD Fellowship is about, we end up providing a platform for students where they come and sit down, analyze case studies about international relations, case studies about diplomacy, case studies about leadership, case studies about sustainability. They come in and discuss about complex case studies, live case studies. For example, there is a river which is which flows through some of the Southeast Asian nations like Laos and Vietnam and Cambodia. When an upstream nation like Laos builds a dam over there, it blocks the river, and the river is no longer flowing down to
To the rest, yeah.
Cambodia and Vietnam. So you can't just stand up and start debating about it. You need to sit down and you need to start talking about your perspectives. So stakeholder perspectives is something which we very actively promote. So wherein you start looking at complex case studies and students sit down and they learn leadership, they learn diplomacy, they learn international relations, they learn how to handle complex problems, they learn how exactly to break down complex problems, they learn how exactly to analyze complex problems through a framework which is called IRAC. IRAC is a method which they teach you in the top law schools or business schools in the world. A Harvard or a Columbia teach you that methodology. It helps you segregate what is the issue, what are the rules which apply to this issue, what's your analysis, and how do you reach a conclusion.
So, what would your one message be to our students?
Live your life, experience as much as you can, soak in whatever comes your way, be agile, be humble, be flexible. At the same time, be open to luck, be open to serendipity. Continue living your life. Life falls into place.
No, I agree with that so much. So I just had one final closing question from you. This actually ties back to what you said yesterday. When you addressed us 11th graders yesterday, you had mentioned a point about how, if you wish to get into a Harvard or a Stanford, you need to create that competitive advantage for yourself. But the one question that stuck with me, and trust me, I've been thinking about this for a very long time now, and I know others who've had similar thoughts too. We have, so many people around us telling us that getting into Harvard or Stanford is something a lot of us wish for. But what is it that a Harvard or a Stanford is doing differently than I cannot achieve at like another university, another, maybe a public university or a state university? Why a Harvard or a Stanford?
Why GSIs? You are from Ahmedabad, you're from Bombay. You could have gone and studied in a smaller school in Ahmedabad. Why do you come to GSIs? A lot of things we do in life because of the equity which is associated with that institution. There's a lot of equity which you build. The name for for equity is brand.
Yeah.
When you're buying a TV, you can choose a manufacturer which you have not known. There is no brand name on it, or you can pay 10%, 20% more and buy an LG. When you're buying a camera, you have got a choice of picking up a random camera, or you could buy a Sony. Why do you do that? Because there is an equity which is associated with these institutions. And when you choose institutions with a certain amount of equity, one, there is a lot of trust which is associated with it. Second and most important one, it opens the doors for you.
I feel it's like the same example you gave, like 2 bars of soap. Now it's how the university portrays one. So it's like how universities can stand out of each other.
Absolutely. So the names of these universities open a lot of doors for you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if I went to a, think about it, if I went to a normal university, and of course the given things which I told you, I come from a small town, I went to a smaller university initially, right? So, and if I did not go to Harvard, if I did not go to an LSE, if I was not a part of the World Economic Forum, if I did not was not part of some of the larger institutions, if I was not the president of IFSBD, would we be doing this today? Would your president be inviting me to come to your campus? Would I be asked to address you people? No. To all that answer is no.
Yes.
Because I am a nobody, as in I do not have that. What is my name coming from? Where is my equity coming from? My personal equity is a compounding of all those equities and the institutions which I've gone to.
Yeah.
Right? And in reverse, there is a reversal case also. So my equity is derived from a Harvard or a London School of Economics or an IFSBD or a UN or all these institutions where I've studied and worked. But the flip side of it is that all these institutions are also looking out for people who would make a change in the world.
Yeah.
They are not looking out for nobodies.
Exactly.
They are looking out for nobodies, but they are looking out for nobodies who've got the confidence that they would go back and change the world. It is about, do you have the confidence that you would go back and change the world? Harvard is looking out for people who change the world, because Harvard at some point of time want to put it in their brochure saying that Barack Obama happened to be my alumnus. That makes a lot of... So one part of it is that Barack Obama went to Harvard. The other part of it is that Harvard had Barack Obama.
Exactly.
Both are great.
You are great because you went to Harvard. Harvard is great because it had someone good come in.
Absolutely. So that's how Harvard builds it, right? What does GSIS except for the students which are going through you? Otherwise, GSIS is about a set of buildings.
Yeah.
It's about the infrastructure. It's about the hard infrastructure. But essentially, GSIS is GSIS because in the last 4.5 decades of your existence, because of the students who have passed through the portals of this great school, who have gone on to the larger institutions, whether it's a Harvard or a Stanford or a Columbia or an LSE or an Oxford or a UN or multiple institutions across the world, whether it's a Google or a Microsoft or an Oracle, the kind of people that students who have gone and worked over there, their equity is back into GS. That's how GS gets built. That's how any institutions get built.
Yeah. That makes so much sense to me. So that is all I had for you. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today. This was a great conversation to have, both personally, and I'm sure our viewers will love it too. And thank you so much to the viewers for being over here today. So
Thank you.